It's happening! SpaceX's second tower construction is starting. Will we see two fully stacked Starships at the same time soon? Stoke Space hits another massive achievement, China is copying SpaceX, and Ingenuity loses contact with Perseverance. Can it be saved? My name is Felix, welcome to What About It? Let's dive right in. Starship updates. The time has come. We're less than a month away from the third orbital flight, and SpaceX is already preparing to build the second launch tower. This will take the launch cadence to new heights. Want to know more? Check this out. The rumor mill suggests that SpaceX might be looking at Valentine's Day for the next attempt to reach orbit with a Starship. Starbase is for lovers. While this may just be speculation, the progress with Booster 10 and Ship 28 lends some credibility to this idea. I would not be surprised to see these vehicles stacked in under a week from now. Following this, a swift wet dress rehearsal, a test that simulates flight-like conditions, would be the final step before the third orbital Starship is launch ready. Just as SpaceX said, hardware ready by the end of January. It also appears that SpaceX has already filed out the necessary paperwork to get a green light from the FAA. They've reportedly submitted a request for a modified launch license and provided a mishap report of the second launch. As I said previously, it appears that this time SpaceX wants to do things quietly, avoiding turning the public against the FAA. Therefore, the new launch license might just appear out of thin air without any prior announcements. In the previous episode, TJ analyzed some evidence suggesting that, for the time being, the original orbital tank farm at Starbase is not going anywhere. This idea makes even more sense when we look at the newest pictures taken by our photographer John. The nitrogen and water tanks are now reinforced not only with vertical beams but also these horizontal structures. This change raises an interesting question. Will these shells be getting an additional outer shell? Currently, there is no evidence to support that, but the number of reinforcements is certainly odd. What do you think? Will these tanks get an extra layer, or is this outer skeleton all that is needed to withstand the third launch? Share your thoughts in the comments. While the ongoing work on the first Stage 0 is undoubtedly exciting, what you should be hyped about is the implication of the second tower at Starbase. On January 22nd, another beam for OLID 2 was delivered, indicating that construction may be about to begin. Let's use this event as an opportunity to see what parts of the second tower are already at Starbase and what the construction phase will likely look like. The first signs of a second tower being a real possibility at Starbase emerged back in November, a mere 3 days before the second Starship launch. At that time, we saw the arrival of components for the top 8th section of the tower, sometimes referred to as Section 8A. These parts were then transported to the Sanchez site, and thanks to Redline helicopter tours, we were able to spot their exact location. Meanwhile, another segment of the orbital tower has been waiting at the port of Brownsville for quite some time now. This section arrived alongside the 2 methane tanks that were recently installed at Massey's. We believe this to be the 7th section of the tower, very likely fabricated at the facility known as Roberts Road. Located right next to the Kennedy Space Center, Roberts Road is where SpaceX built segments for the Orbital Launch Integration Tower destined for Florida's ex-Apollo Pad 39A. Following the installation of all segments at LC-39A, SpaceX started building a third integration tower. I thought that was strange from the beginning. Now this spare tower is being transported piece by piece to Boca Chica to become the second Starbase tower. Naturally, these sections are incredibly heavy, which is why you can't just place them on the ground. Instead, SpaceX has constructed reinforced concrete pads visible in one of our flyovers. On January 23rd, prefabrication footings were installed on one of these pads, paving the way for SpaceX to start the assembly of the first tower segment. While we're at it, how about you go see all of this for yourself? Book your own ride at Starbase and see these things in person, or just enjoy one of the most incredible views in the world. Go to redlineheli.com/Felix, you'll find the link in the description as well. I promise you won't ever forget this. Returning our focus to the launch site, the initial phase of constructing the new tower will likely involve dealing with excess water. Although the precise location for the second OLID isn't confirmed, SpaceX's original plans suggest it would be situated approximately 100 meters or 330 feet from the existing one. Assuming all necessary permits and approvals are secured, the next step would be to stabilize the ground in preparation for construction. The area around the launch site is wetlands, which means the soil is largely sand and like a wet sponge, far from ideal for erecting a massive structure like a launch tower. That's why we can expect SpaceX to set up wick drains, which act like straws, drawing water up from deeper soil layers to the surface. This may take a few weeks, but it is likely a necessary step given how difficult of a terrain this is. After most of the water is extracted, we will see the introduction of piles, potentially hundreds of them, both large and small, to further stabilize the ground layer. The aftermath of the first launch revealed that the foundation under the first launch mount wasn't as stable as needed. It's unlikely that SpaceX will repeat this error, I hope, so we should anticipate an even bigger piling operation this time around. After the ground is stable enough, the construction of foundations for both the new tower and the orbital launch mount will begin. Drawing from the approach at LC-39A, the legs of the second launch table might be installed at a straighter angle. This would future-proof the launch mount to accommodate a potential increase in Starship mass by, let's say, making it 25% taller. The legs of the launch table are simply round metal casings, which will eventually be filled with concrete. Unlike with the first tower, this time one of the early steps will probably include setting up the water deluge system. The installation of this system at the first tower was one hell of a task, mainly because it was added as an afterthought. By installing the deluge system from the get-go, SpaceX can lay the pipes more efficiently, significantly reducing installation time. Following this, the site will get engulfed in rebar, with large quantities of concrete poured around the area. The incorporation of rebar is key. It's designed to prevent a repeat of what happened during the first launch, where exhaust gases entered a crack in the concrete, yeeting massive chunks of it into the air. As for the tower's base, a good sign that work has begun will be a U-shaped hole right next to the launch mount. Mirroring the first tower, the second OLID is also expected to feature a concrete base housing essential elements such as electronic systems, hydraulics, and drawworks. Once the foundations are poured, it should take less than 30 days before we see installation of the first metal sections. Unlike the first tower, where the first segments were assembled directly on site, here SpaceX will install full sections from the beginning. This operation will require a crane, and I mean it, like the legendary LR-11350. To give you some context, the first section of OLID 1 was installed in April 2021, and the final section was lifted a mere 3 months later. The assembly of the second tower is expected to be even quicker. As the segments are stacked, teams at Starbase will simultaneously work on connecting infrastructure like piping for the quick disconnect arm. The sections are likely to be hoisted into place already equipped with the necessary hardware, streamlining the process significantly. After the main structure of the tower is complete, the focus will shift to installing components like pulleys, the quick disconnect arm, and the chopsticks, a crucial element of the Mechazilla crane. During the construction of the first tower at Starbase, the Mechazilla arms were assembled on site. However, at Roberts Road, a pair of chopsticks and a quick disconnect arm are already waiting, ready for installation. If these components can be transported in one piece, their installation shouldn't take too long. Interestingly, the new chopsticks are actually shorter than those currently in use at Starbase, measuring about 10 meters or 32 feet less in length. Despite this difference, they are still expected to be capable of catching the Super Heavy booster. Following the completion of the first Mechazilla, SpaceX conducted load tests using massive sacks to evaluate the system's lifting capacity. It remains to be seen if the new chopsticks will undergo similar testing, but it is likely. As for the orbital launch table, its construction is likely to progress independently of the tower. In fact, one such deck is already being built in Florida. The challenge, however, lies in its sheer weight, making transportation over public roads potentially not an option. If SpaceX wants to use the new tower within this year, then work on the launch table should be a priority, as it is among one of the most complicated pieces of hardware at Starbase. Despite its unassuming appearance, the launch deck incorporates thousands of sensors as well as connections for the Raptor and booster quick disconnects. Constructing one from the ground up is a task that could span several months. So when can we expect the second tower to be ready? The foundations for the original launch table were laid around June 2020, and it wasn't until February 2022 that Ship 20 was hoisted for the first time by Mechazilla. This time around, the construction is expected to be significantly more efficient, but that doesn't mean the new tower will be operational within a month or two after pouring the first batch of concrete. 2024 is definitely going to be an interesting year at Starbase. Do you think we'll witness 2 fully stacked Starships at Starbase before the year is out? Place your bets in the comments, I love reading them. Now here's a little task for you before we continue with the news. YouTube may have unsubscribed you without your knowledge. This has happened to thousands of Y viewers and it can happen frequently. Please double check that you've hit that subscribe button so that you don't miss our updates. And while checking, hit the like button and consider becoming a Y supporter for exclusive SpaceX update. With it, you get access to daily Starbase photo galleries now including orbital, aerial and ground photos of SpaceX's progress and countless other extras on top. And no matter how much you decide to give, everyone gets the same supporter content and access. You decide what you want to give. Check our new website as well, launch previews, road closures, the latest weather report and our multi-stream viewer, whataboutit.space. The link to our Patreon page and the new website is in the description. Thanks to all the supporters who help fulfill dreams for our team. We can't thank you enough, you rock. Now before we go back to the news, here's a quick word from our one and only TJ.
Thanks, Felix. We have some exciting news. We've teamed up with Link 2 for a cosmic journey. Come join us. Have you seen Axiom Space's AX3 launch? What if you could contribute to the next AX4 mission? Thanks to Link 2, expanding your portfolio makes this dream a reality. Invest in Axiom Space through Link 2 to support the next chapter of human spaceflight. Whether a space enthusiast or just captivated by limitless possibilities, join us in the ever-expanding space industry. Historically, such investments were for the wealthy, but now everyday investors like us can join the space race and contribute to Axiom's future. Moreover, we are confident in their security of assets, knowing that Link 2 diligently vets their companies, allowing participation only in those they can fully endorse. If you're interested, consider starting your private equity portfolio today, using the link in our description. Don't miss out. Seize this limited stellar opportunity by using the code WAI500, WAI500 at checkout for a $500 discount on your first investment. And now, back to Felix for more space news.
Thanks TJ, Link 2 is great. We continue with one of my favorite new space companies. That's right, we're talking about Stoke Space. Founded a mere 4 years ago, this company has demonstrated that SpaceX isn't the only player capable of groundbreaking innovation in today's space industry. You're likely familiar with their flagship project, the Nova rocket, a 2-stage fully reusable vehicle equipped with some truly cutting-edge technology. One of the most intriguing aspects of Nova's design is its fascinating engine configuration. Rather than going with the traditional approach of using a single engine with one thrust chamber, Stoke has developed an engine powered by 2 turbopumps but with 15 chambers. Their eventual aim is to expand this number to 30. This unique setup enables some interesting options, such as integrating thrusters into the heat shield and employing different throttle thrust vector control, allowing for gimbaling of the engine without any moving parts. This is some truly groundbreaking stuff. Another noteworthy feature of Nova is the aforementioned heat shield. At first glance, it doesn't look like anything special, but it's actually a self-regulating active cooling system. The rocket's fuel doesn't just pass through the combustion chamber nozzle, it also flows through the heat shield. As the shield heats up during re-entry, it warms the fuel within, which in turn speeds up the turbopumps, circulating more fuel to dissipate heat. If that's not innovation, then I don't know what is. In 2023, Stoke was focused on developing the upper stage, which culminated in a successful hop test, giving off some Starhopper vibes. The company has since shifted its attention to the first stage, aiming for Falcon 9-like reusability. In December, Stoke unveiled the first prototype of the booster, which quickly underwent pressure testing. More recently, they released a video showcasing the initial testing of components for their Methalox full-flow staged combustion engine. Wait, full-flow staged combustion? This does sound familiar, doesn't it? Indeed, it should, as it's the same type of combustion used by SpaceX's legendary Starship Raptor engine. The newest video shared by Stoke may look like a mishap or an anomaly, with fire seemingly out of control. However, it was actually a successful static fire test of the fuel-rich pre-burner. This component burns a small amount of fuel to power the turbopumps and converts liquid propellant into gas for the main combustion chamber. Seeing Stoke's rapid progress, I wouldn't be surprised if we see a full engine test within a year. It was a similar story with Relativity Space, who went from testing thrust chamber assembly to full engine in just a couple of months. Yet the United States isn't the sole nation pushing the boundaries of reusable rocket technology. For our next story, we shift our attention to China, where a company named Landspace is trying to catch up with SpaceX. Though we don't often cover Chinese rockets, you should be familiar with Landspace. These are the guys behind the Shushea 2 rocket, which notably became the first methane-powered rocket in the world to achieve orbit. It was quite unexpected to see China take the title in the methane rocket race. The company's pace of development is awe-inspiring. Following the failure of their Shushea 1 rocket in 2018, they completely abandoned that design in favor of the more advanced Shushea 2. Now they are already deep into developing Shushea 3, and by developing I mean they are far beyond the phase of making pretty renders. In December, Landspace revealed an image of their test stand. It's essentially a flame trench equipped with 3 pedestals to support the rocket's legs and 2 quick disconnect arms for fuel and power. Then around January 19th, a prototype of Shushea 3's first stage, measuring 18.3 meters or 60 feet in length, was installed on the launch pad. As you might have guessed, this rocket utilizes the new king of rocket fuel, Methalox, a combination of liquid methane and liquid oxygen. The prototype was fitted with a single TQ-12 engine capable of generating 658 kilonewtons of thrust. In comparison, SpaceX's Raptor produces around 2,600 kilonewtons at sea level. This engine, already flight-proven by Shushea 2, is a surprisingly reliable piece of equipment. The final version of Shushea 3 will be equipped with 9 of these engines. On the day the test article was moved to the launch pad, it was also fueled. Then the engine ignited and the prototype took to the skies. The test, lasting 60 seconds, was the hopper ascent to an altitude of 350 meters or 1,140 feet before landing on a designated pad just a short distance away. It was quite the ambitious inaugural test. By comparison, SpaceX's initial hops with Falcon 9 prototypes were restrained jumps of just a meter. Following the success of this test, the next task for the prototype will be a 10-kilometer or 6.2-mile flight. The complete Shushea 3 rocket, slated for a 2025 debut, is expected to carry up to 21,000 kilograms or 46,000 pounds of payload to low Earth orbit in an expandable mode. It is obviously designed with options for barge landings or return to launch site flights, albeit with reduced payload capacity. This rapid development of the Chinese launch market should be a wake-up call for US companies. While they may not surpass the likes of SpaceX in the immediate future, Chinese firms are rapidly positioning themselves as cheap alternatives for launching payloads for international clients. To end today's episode, we embark beyond our planet to my favorite planet, Mars, where the Ingenuity helicopter recently caused some anxiety after losing communication with the Perseverance rover. It is hard to believe that it's been nearly 3 years since Ingenuity's deployment from Perseverance. Time really flies, and so does Ingenuity, pun intended. Launched in July 2020, the helicopter represented a groundbreaking technology demonstration to evaluate the feasibility of powered flight on Mars. The results have been nothing short of astounding. Initially, the helicopter was expected to endure a mere 30 Martian days or sols and complete 5 flights at best. Yet over 1,000 sols and 72 flights later, Ingenuity continues to surpass expectations even despite some recent challenges. The first flight of 2024, Flight 71, was cut short due to technical issues causing some concern. 2 weeks after this aborted mission, Flight 72 was scheduled to ensure all systems were functioning correctly following the prior issues. However, during this flight, as Ingenuity ascended to 12 meters or 40 feet, communication between the helicopter and the Perseverance rover was suddenly lost. That is never a good sign. Thankfully, NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory quickly found out that Ingenuity had simply moved out of Perseverance's line of sight, cutting the communication link. Fortunately, Ingenuity operates autonomously, similar to a drone you could buy on Amazon. Once it lost contact, it aborted its flight and safely landed. I really gotta check Amazon. By January 20th, communication with Ingenuity was successfully re-established. The team at JPL will now perform thorough diagnostics to confirm that all systems are operational before continuing the flight tests. Ingenuity's achievements are nothing short of remarkable, having covered over 17 kilometers or 10.5 miles on Mars, a feat that initially seemed improbable if not impossible. This little helicopter's performance is a testament to the exceptional engineering at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory.
It is bittersweet that I must announce that Ingenuity, the little helicopter that could, well, it has now taken its last flight. At least one of its carbon fiber rotor blades was damaged, and so thank you, Ingenuity.
That's it for today. Remember to smash that like button, subscribe for more awesome content. This is what fuels the algorithm and helps us immensely. Check out our epic shirts in your favorite Space Nerd store. A link is in the description. And if you want to train your space IQ even further, watch this video next to continue your journey. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you again in the next episode. Seemingly. Work. The Mechazilla booster. That, the full rich, yeah. Choo-choo-choo-choo-choo-choo. Ingenuity. Let's do that again.